Steve, you got to get your son to cooperate a little. No, I mean it's fine. It makes the attempt that much more interesting, actually.
So in our ongoing series of evaluating attempts at Agete, we have a friend of ours from a forum, Steve Chan, who is kind enough to give his own entry in this series. And actually, I really like this video a lot. He does 3 different approaches. So why don't I just play it? We'll do a quick run through of it, and then we'll just see how you guys react.
This is my take on the Agete challenge, as they call it. There's been a couple of things where people have emphasized using the back strength, and that's not really what I think I want folks want to see. So let me try demonstrating a few ways. So if you push down on my arm, so here this is back strength. All right. So if you push on it, here this is I use the front closing, also lifting him. And here's a slightly different way, which is just using pressure. I pressurize down, and that pushes the arms up, 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 up. And so this is my son. He's not huge like some of the people in the demos, but I think the premise is there. And the thing is, I would say that this is very similar to the Dai family Zhuan-Chuan, drilling fist, which goes like this, then up, like this. And this arm raise is similar to this. So whereas if you use the back, it is pushing. If you push on my arm, here this is the back, and if here, and then here's the rising up the front. This is another phase of Pichon, and then if you put both arms on here, this is the push up push. This is 1, 2, 4. This is like the P Zhuan. And that's it.
Interesting.
Very interesting, actually. I like how he covered 3 different versions of that. What we would consider Agete. Yeah. So why don't we go back and play that video again? Just the introduction, and so that people kind of see what they are.
Hey, so this is my take on the Agete challenge, as they call it. There's been a couple of things where people have emphasized using the back strength, and that's not really what I think the Aunkai folks want to see. So let me try demonstrating a few ways. All right, so if you push down on my arm, so here this is back strength. All right, so if you push on it, here this is I use the front closing, also lifting him. And here's a slightly different way, which is just using pressure. I pressurize down, and that pushes the arms up.
Okay, so let's stop here real quick. So let's summarize what he did, right? The first one was him using just sheer back muscles, right? It's great that he's showing it wrong too. I like that. I think more people should do that to kind of give a good frame of reference. The front one is he says front closing. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, front closing like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we had the kind of the pressure.
Yep.
Increased pressure. So
by the way, maybe make a caveat when Alex says muscle, and when Steve is actually expanding, from the back to propagate a force forwards, it's not the same as shoving per se, by the way. So there's that connection through the back where you expand outwards, and that's kind of what Steve is demonstrating. And that by itself is not, I mean, you have to practice it to get that. I mean, would you agree, Alex?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for the clarification. And yes, that's definitely not a typical shove that most people would just do.
Yeah.
But there is a kind of a back muscular component that he is using for sure, right? So
you're implying there's a force on force clash.
yes, there has to be, because the way he's actually pushing. So if we roll it back, it's not a shove. Let's get that out of the way. It is not a shove.
Or as in, it's not a shove as we defined it with the gentleman from, what was it, Chutani or whatever, the Aikido guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree that you do see a lot of force on force, and you see resistance. Now, granted, Steve's son, the hand position that he's using doesn't make it the easiest to transmit that force and see how it's affecting his body. You can also see how, you know, his arms, he doesn't have the elbows locked, so it kind of absorbs that force a bit. What I do like too, in terms of just the setup, is that this is probably one of the closer setups that we've seen. His son is very, very close in terms of the knee position. He's able to lean onto him to get a lot more of the force, or a lot more of the weight onto him, which, you know, makes it more difficult for Steve to do than say some of the other demonstrations that we've seen.
His son is also being a real bastard by holding him on the inside. I'm just gonna say that, Steve, you got to get your son to cooperate a little. No, I mean, it's fine. It makes the attempt that much more interesting, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is interesting to see a different way of doing it. But I think if we want to just, you know, for the sake of not thoroughness, but consistency, maybe if Steve was to just demonstrate this one again with his son using a different grip and maybe a slightly different arm position, it'd be easier to compare and contrast this attempt to some of the other ones.
Yeah.